Welcome to this update. I'm Kim Hicks-Dye. Did you know that 1 in 10 Americans 60 and over have experienced some form of abuse? It's a difficult topic, but my guests today really want to bring awareness. Now, joining right now is Delia Meadows with the Charles County Department of Social Services, Charity Paul with the Center for Abused Persons, and also Captain Stephen Salvis with the Sheriff's Office. Welcome to this update.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to start with you and tell us, you're with Social Services, tell us what Adult Protective Services is.
Well, it is estimated that approximately 5 million elder adults are physically abused, sexually abused, neglected, or financially exploited. The Adult Protective Services program investigates such allegations. It is also estimated that approximately $5 billion are lost by our older Americans due to financial exploitations, funds that could have been utilized for their care, such as medical care, food, or shelter. Unfortunately, abuse occurs everywhere. It can occur to anyone. It can occur to a family member, a friend, a neighbor, or even yourself. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, only 1 out of 5 cases are ever reported.
Mm-hmm. Some hard statistics,
Yes.
very, very hard
Yes.
statistics when you're talking about this. 1 in 5, why is that?
Because sometimes the person who's the victim, it may be someone they know and they don't want to get that individual in trouble, so they won't say anything. Sometimes because the individual is cognitive impaired, such as dementia or Alzheimer's, and they're unable to utilize a phone or to ask for help. Individuals are bedridden and somehow do not have access to a phone, and so it's very hard for them to make that phone call. Mm-hmm. But the majority of the times, the department finds that the victim does not want to report that abuse.
Mm-hmm. Because at the hands of a family member, I mean, there's embarrassment and just the idea that a family member is doing this to you.
Yes, or they're afraid that they're going to be incarcerated or face legal charges. Mm-hmm. That's another concern that they have.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to move over to you, Charity. Tell us your involvement when you talk about Centers for Abused Persons.
With the Center for Abused Persons, we concentrate on domestic violence, and the word domestic, it has to do with people living under the same household, and definitely it spans from all ages, so the elderly are also involved with this. And I work with the Center for Abused Persons as a hotline counselor during the weekends, and have had calls where, elderlies call in and say, oh, my partner has been abusing me because I've been coming up with various ailments that he or she is not able to deal with, and I'm abandoned, he left me, and we were married for over 40 years. I never believed this could happen. So, that reality that, they had to pull along with each other sets in, and, the one falls on the wayside. And I've had, another call where, or instances where an elderly who's widowed will have a young person get married to them, but they don't have the knowledge that they had an ulterior motive of not just being a partner, but going for their inheritance or their property. And I believe that's a scenario where elderly abuse happens in, a subtle way that we might not observe until it's too late. Mm-hmm. So with the Center for Abused Persons, when they call in like that, it's either we refer them, it depends on the circumstance. We've had financial, difficulties where we know, okay, we need to refer you to the DSS, the Department of Social Services. So we work in collaboration just to make sure they get the help they need. And if it's therapy with the couples, we have a few elderly that come in to see how they can, get along with each other and work through that, ordeal at the moment.
All right, and when you talk about collaboratively, bring you into this, Captain Salvis, some of these cases you actually see. When I say you, your department.
Right. Like Delia mentioned, there's abuse can run the spectrum from physical to sexual to financial. So these types of investigations are spread across various units in our criminal investigations division. We have a special victims unit, and they concentrate on crimes against children and vulnerable adults, and that's how they're considered whether it's an older adult with dementia or even perhaps a younger adult with a physical limitation or a mental limitation in which they would be considered dependent on someone else. So the Special Victims Unit would handle those types of investigations if it involves physical and sexual abuse. We also have a financial crimes unit, and those detectives would handle any of the financial scams or where someone is taking advantage of an older person financially and perhaps even stealing, embezzling money because of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of that, because that's such a big thing, I'm always amazed at the number of scams that go on, and especially during cycles. So the IRS calling you and saying that the sheriffs are coming to your door, and if you're an elderly person, you could believe that. Can you kind of tell folks if they get some sort of call like that, or their grandchild has gotten kidnapped? I've actually known of a case actually here in Charles County where somebody was scammed out of $2,000. I mean, that's terrible. But can you kind of really emphasize that?
We regularly are putting out press releases about incidents just like you're referring to. There are a variety of scams out there where older people are being targeted. And a lot of times, older people have, because they've been in their house long enough, perhaps their home is paid for, so they don't have a lot of expenses. They may have a little extra money in the bank. You know, they have grandchildren, people they care for. Someone can tug on the heartstrings, whether it's using a grandchild as the hook or some other heartstring type of thing. Or even some people use a listen, I need help, so I'm going to send you this check. Would you cash it for me? And then send checks to these addresses in this amount. Well, some people would say, yeah, I'd be happy to do that for you. They deposit the check. This just happened recently. And they find out later that check was no good, but the check they wrote from their own account just paid out quite a lot of money, in the thousands of dollars.
Right.
So it does happen. It happens a lot. And yeah, we try to stay ahead of it. Thankfully, there are people who don't fall for these scams. And if that's the case, generally there's not a crime. And there's not much to pursue. It's only when somebody has lost a lot of money that a crime has occurred, and there are avenues that we can investigate. But again, some of these calls or emails come from offshore. So they're tough cases to investigate.
It's hard, but again, just that awareness, creating that awareness out there. And speaking of that, when you talk about, say if something's happening in a family member, even say like a lawyer, if you suspect that this person is they can report, right? I mean, it's not just...
Anyone can report.
Okay.
Anyone in the community can report. Our intake line is open Monday through Fridays from 8 to 4:30, and that number is 301-392-6733. Our after hours is the local sheriff's office, and that number is 301-932-2222. And you request to speak with the case manager on call for that evening, that weekend, or that holiday.
Now, coming up on June 15th is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Tell us about that.
Well, the WEAD Day was initially launched on June 15, 2006 by the International Organization for the Prevention of Elder Abuse and the World Health Organization of the United Nations. The event was launched due to create awareness in communities by talking about elder abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. And also, as Captain Salva says, it happens everywhere. It just doesn't happen in particular neighborhoods, it happens everywhere. And unfortunately, it's something that we have to investigate. The WEAD event is observed to bring awareness as individuals, as organizations, as community partners, to individuals that lack understanding of this type of situations.
And tell us, who's the gear for this event? Tell us what's happening on that day, on June 15th.
Well, on June 15th, we're holding a event. Captain Salvis, you want to kind of?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm privileged to be part of the planning committee with Delia, and it'll start at 8:30 with registration, and there'll be continental breakfast. And then there are several different topics that are going to be discussed. There'll be a panel discussion as well involving some adult protective service workers, a detective from the sheriff's office, and others. There's some really good presentations that I think will be very beneficial for people to hear and learn, especially those who may be caretakers. Lunch is provided. It is free. The event will run from 9 to 4 that day. Again, registration at 8:30. It's at Charles County Department of Social Services at 200 Kent Avenue in La Plata. Everyone is welcome. Social workers can get CEU credits for it. So we would welcome anyone to come. I think it will be a very eye-opening day, frankly.
For a lot of people who are very surprised that this takes place, and unfortunately, too, it can be kind of a hidden situation in terms of somebody that's at home who's shut in and can't get that cry out for help, right?
Exactly, exactly.
One of the things about Elder Abuse Awareness Day, you can get credit for it too, as well.
Yes, if you're a licensed clinical social worker or licensed counselor, we are giving 5.5 free CEUs on that day.
Captain Salvis, again, the event is June 15th. You want folks to pre-register?
Yes, ma'am. And then at 8:30 that morning, when they come in, it's more of a check-in, confirming their registration and so on, and breakfast, and then we'll get started at 9.
So once again, the takeaway for folks out there, be aware, see something, say something.
Exactly. If you have any concerns, regardless of whether or not, you have real hard evidence, but if there's concern, something has changed, just give us a call at our intake line.
Same thing, Charity Paul, please call Center for Abused Persons.
Yes, because we run 24/7, so during the weekends or midnight or after hours, work hours, you can call in anytime. On our numbers, we have 301-645-3336 and 301-645-3337. Those are the two hotlines that we can be contacted at any time.
And Captain Salvis?
The Sheriff's Office has worked very closely for years and years. We have such a solid partnership with Charles County Department of Social Services and the Center for Abused Persons in investigating these cases, helping people get their needs met, but ensuring people are safe, and from our perspective that justice is served.
Well, thank you so much for your information, and hopefully some folks out there will learn something and, yes, decrease this. And for the folks out there, thank you for watching this update.